So do you know that children laugh 150 times a day? That blows my mind, right? Because there's only 24 hours in a day. And yet by the time we become adults, do you know that goes down to just 12? Okay, so I want you all to indulge me with a little experiment. Will you do that? I want you to look at your neighbor. Everybody find a neighbor, look at somebody. If they're not looking at you, you can poke them. And I want you to smile at them. Like a big smile. Like the kind that you can feel up to your eyes. Keep looking at them. Keep looking at them. It's hard to not start giggling, right? You're making me laugh. Okay, so just by doing this little experiment, do you know that your body started to release feel-good dopamines? Dopamines are what make us happy and reduce our stress levels. When we have low levels of dopamine, this is when we become depressed. And here's the best part. Even if you faked it, you still got the same benefit. See, we often think that we laugh in response to something humorous. Not so. It turns out 80% of our laughter is in response to someone else laughing. So there was a study in Wales, and they found that people who could not frown because they had Botox were less depressed. So what if, in the face of chaos, our first response is to have fun? It's kind of an offensive idea, right? I mean, you don't celebrate somebody when they lose their job, and you don't go to a funeral and crack a joke, and you don't go through cancer treatment and then throw a party, or do you? It might actually be an appropriate, or at least a response, that would change how people experience moments of chaos. And it turns out there's actually real health benefits for responding with fun. So if you go to the US Library of Medicine and you just simply search laughter, you will come back with over 2,200 studies dating back to the 13th century. See, it turns out laughter does all of these great things to our body. It increases our immune system and it builds those killer cells that fight infection. It can actually increase our pain tolerance and relax our muscles for a full 45 minutes. It can increase your life expectancy, and this is particularly notable in people who are battling cancer. It will balance your parasympathetic and your sympathetic system. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's really curious to me, if we know laughter does all of these really great things, then how come in the face of childhood cancer, we do the exact opposite? So my daughter was diagnosed with a stage 4 high-risk neuroblastoma, which is a childhood sticky, yucky tumor, when she was about 3.5 years old. And I was told by the chaplain at a major children's hospital that when families get this diagnosis, the laughter stops. It becomes dark and solemn and serious because this is not a joke, this is the big C. And I get that, right? Because we can just hear the word cancer and we become filled with fear. Right? We can become terrified, start to worry, become anxious, nervous. So for me, I actually had an out-of-body experience. I spent about 2 weeks where I would look at my hand and I would go, I know that is my hand, it is no longer attached to my body, and can anybody else tell? That is the power of fear. So what does chronic fear do to the body? Well, those studies are interesting too. Fear will actually weaken our immune system. It will disrupt our nervous system, our endocrine system, our pituitary glands, really serious stuff. It will affect our wake cycle and our sleep cycle. It can even cause eating disorders. And again, the list goes on and on. But it turns out that we are naturally wired with an antidote to combat fear in moments of chaos. And our children do it naturally. It's called laughter. See, laughter is primitive. It is a feature that we share with the great apes. Babies will start to laugh at about 16 weeks old, and even babies that are born without the ability to see or hear will still laugh. Laughter's universal. It's in every culture throughout history. Now, what if something that is so primal, so biologically based in our bodies, we've made culturally and socially taboo? And is that really what's best for our bodies and our minds and our children? Because the body of medical evidence seems to be saying no. So when I was given this diagnosis, I chose to face cancer with the only thing I could control in this chaos, and I was going to have fun. So what does that look like? Well, now we have the infamous tumor stopping party. I don't know if you've ever seen a tumor, but I had my daughters blown up into a giant poster. And we stuck it on a wall, and we shot that sucker with marshmallow shooters. We had the staff come in, and they would tell that tumor it messed with the wrong kid and wish her well wishes. And I had little 8x10 photos blown up, and she took these little monkey slippers and stomped on them and ceremoniously ripped the tumor up. And we had cake and cupcakes and played music. I remember one particularly boring day after weeks and weeks and weeks in the hospital. She was very cranky. We were confined in a room. I don't know if you've ever been to the hospital, but they measure your input and your output. So we had to put the diapers on the scale for the nurses to come in. So I decided to go down to the gift shop. I bought some curling ribbon and some bows and some markers, and we started to wrap up her diapers like little presents and write little jokes on them. And then we'd sit in the bed, and we'd wait and giggle and see, would the nurse think our joke was funny? And then we'd have to go down and get CAT scans regularly or other parts of the hospital, which when you're 3.5, that can feel scary, right? So we had a moose puppet. I called him High Five Moose, and we'd go cruising through the hospital, and we'd high five unsuspecting people down the hall. It was fun. Who could we ambush? Who would be fun and who would be freaked out? And I didn't care who thought I was weird. I wanted my daughter giggling on the way down to her CAT scan, and I wanted her laughing after an 8-hour tumor removal surgery. I just didn't know I was producing all of these really good health benefits. It was just how I coped. And now, my daughter is 13 years old. It's over there. And she will talk to you about cancer the way you and I might talk about strep throat. I mean, it was a season of chaos, but it is sprinkled with moments of silliness and laughter and fun. And very openly, I have to work harder to remember the really painful moments. Like the night we had this inconclusive test came back, and I had to wait for the doctor in the morning to tell me whether or not she relapsed, and every moment that night felt like an eternity. And I had recently had my mother remind me of that because I had just forgotten. Because I like the fun memories better, don't you? See, fun is an appropriate and possibly necessary coping skill that we all need to develop. And how would that change the childhood cancer world? I mean, we're very quick to embrace things like gratitude and mindfulness. Well, why not fun and silliness in the same way? I really want to challenge the cancer conversation. Why are we not using laughter and giggles and fun and play on a huge scale for our children to boost their pain tolerance, to increase that healthy oxygen into their body, to increase those dopamine levels? Now, I'm not foolish. I'm not going to say, have some giggles and some jokes and it will cure them of cancer. But knowing what I know now, why not give it every best shot in the book? Why not pull out every trick that we have? With rising medical costs, laughter is 100% free. And with no risks, no side effects, no adverse reactions, no late effects, perhaps it's time we consider laughter seriously.